This is the beginning of video 2 for chapter 10 about direct marketing. So we were moving into the second question. What are direct response media? There we go. Direct response media, it's a type of advertising, really. So the thing that makes this different than all advertising, just more broadly, is that it's really providing information. So information that is direct to the audience, information that goes beyond just a simple billboard. So in this case, what we're talking about really are things like direct mail. So you could get that snail mail, which, the physical mail that comes to your mailbox, or you could get direct response media in your email, which you're probably pretty familiar with. We started talking about catalogs in the last section. They're also considered a type of direct response media. We also have telemarketing, so that's when somebody calls you. You probably have a nice blocker on your phone installed because we all get a lot of those telemarketing calls these days. Not all of them are from real people anymore. And then also broadcast media, so things like the infomercials that we talked about in the last chapter. So one thing that all of these media have in common, and just as a reminder, what makes this direct marketing with these direct response media is that they're all calling you to action. They all want a direct transaction. They want you to buy something as a result of this communication. It's not about brand image. It's about buy this thing now. So let's talk a little bit deeper about catalogs. So these are a published list of items for sale. They are usually accompanied by attractive imagery. This is Katy Perry, I believe. Oh gosh, if I'm wrong, I'm going to look really out of touch. So they're a published list of items for sale. So there are thousands of catalogs that still float around. You might probably not receive as many as we used to in the past, but I remember these were a daily feature of life, especially when I grew up in a small town in Northern Ontario. These were really basically our lifeline. Before the days of going online shopping, we ended up ordering a lot of things specifically from the Sears catalog. And I don't know, maybe you had this experience when you were a kid, but like maybe going through and circling the toys you wanted in the catalog or something like that. I know I did that. And so that's another type of way that we use catalogs. Usually we're using them to find stuff not in our local area. So in the last video, I mentioned that LL Bean catalog that I still kind of look at quite a bit because I really like their slippers and pajamas. And that's not around here, right? Like I'm not going to go to my nearest LL Bean to get that stuff. And we don't have a Sephora around here either, tragically. So, you got to use the catalog or more recently, online shopping, obviously being the key. So even though catalogs have become less popular in recent years, Americans actually still spend almost $1,000 a year on catalog purchases. Now, young people, maybe not. They might be spending $0 on catalog purchases, but maybe your grandparents are making up for that. So remember, the average just takes the total spend and divides it by the total population in this case. So really, this is an average. It means that some people are spending a lot on catalogs and some people might not be spending anything. So sometimes these can also be used as an image builder. So sometimes, we kind of look down on brands that have catalogs, but sometimes not. So in the case of the Sephora catalog that we're looking at, this does give us a chance to see some of those beauty looks and actually gives them a chance to enhance the brand image, even though it's a catalog that might not be the freshest form of direct marketing these days. So a little bit more on telemarketing or getting a phone call. This is when you get solicited by telephone. So when someone calls you up and they want to sell you something, that is telemarketing. So generally, we're not a big fan of this. I don't know about you, but I get about 16 robocalls a day. So I have more or less locked down my phone now, and you can barely get through to me, even if you're on my contact list. I feel that I'm probably not alone, and many of you are probably like nodding your head or rolling your eyes right now. And I would love to see you in person doing that if we could meet in person. So, we don't really love to get these phone calls. And like, who calls anybody now anyway? Maybe more so today, given the coronavirus, but so there are some advantages. One is that if you have an actual person on the other end of the line, they could address you directly or talk to you directly. They could get a sense of what your needs are. It's a little bit more of a personal experience than just sending you maybe a catalog or an advertisement where you might not respond or you might just be able to totally disregard. I'll also say that although this might not be as popular with young people, this is still quite popular with older generations who might not have as many people to talk to in their day. So it is still pretty popular. And I mean, I know that a lot of people get scammed by telemarketers and stuff too. So it's definitely alive and well. So some disadvantages is that telemarketing can be quite expensive. And, especially in the days of like apps like RoboKiller or call filtering, you can actually have a hard time reaching potential customers. So it can be quite an expense to have someone just there on the phone or an entire room full of people on the phone. It can be a little more expensive than it's worth. So there's also different types of broadcast media. So a lot of this is advertising that's done through television. So here's an example of an infomercial being shot. We see somebody modeling the clothes. So there are a few different ways that we can do this. There are TV spots. So maybe it's on a daytime television show or something where we show off some clothing. Infomercials. I know we looked at the joke Kim Kardashian one, but those things are still really popular. I'm sure you've probably watched one or two in your day. And also home shopping, which is still actually very, very popular. Again, still maybe with an older generation. The direct response media that we tend to kind of be more involved with are things like listserv emails. So here's an activity that I'd like you to do. So I want you to keep a 1-day direct response reflection journal. So I want you to write down all the direct response media that reaches you for one entire day. So things like emails, telemarketers, catalogs, anything that reaches you in one day. And answer these questions and pop your response onto a discussion board in Chapter 10, in the Chapter 10 folder. So the first question, after you list exactly what you saw, I want you to answer if you purchased anything as a result of that media. And then I want you to kind of put on your direct marketer hat. Think like a direct marketer for a second. What worked? What didn't work? So what was successful about the direct marketing you saw and what was not successful? And what would you do differently if you were a direct marketing specialist? And I will end this video here and come back with our last question for this chapter. So what are sales promotions?